guys, welcome back for another networking party. This is Tanner Guzy. Tanner is a TEDx speaker. He is a men's fashion wizard, I'm going to say.
Okay.
He helps guys really find their style. Today he's going to talk to us about his story and also his business and kind of how he made it so that it's a little more relatable. And if you guys ever want to figure out your style and become famous, or just live a regular life as a low-key style wizard, he's your man. Welcome, Tanner.
Awesome. All right, so like I said, presentations are boring, especially in intimate groups. So what I would like to do is I'll tell you guys kind of the story of how you become a style coach, which I understand is a weird gig. I get it. So we'll kind of walk through that, and then at any point, we can have a discussion. There's nothing off limits. I'll tell you guys what revenue looks like. I'll tell you guys what the stressors are. One thing that I will tell you is that I can't give the full story without the spiritual element. There's so much that's related to personal revelation, to the nature of eternal families, to all of these things that correlate with, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, and so many things that correlate with my testimony there, that my business is so driven and hinged upon that I can't really tell the full story without getting into that too. So that's all on limits as well. Okay, sound good?
That's great.
Okay, so let's see, where should I start? When I got home from my mission, so I served in Toronto, Canada. I was Spanish speaking. I was there from 2003 to 2005, so I got a couple transfers under Tad Callister, which was really cool.
Wow.
When I got home, I had no idea what I wanted to do, which I'm sure was similar to a few of you guys. And the only thing that really kind of resonated with me was I like to talk, and I like to talk about things that matter in kind of like fun, abstract ways, right? Like who would have expected to hear a conversation about martial combat like the one that we just had, right? But that's what's fun, is to get to do that. And so I thought maybe I could do talk radio. Maybe I could do be a young, more libertarian version of like a Sean Hannity or a Glenn Beck.
Cool.
So I got my degree from broadcast journalism at the University of Utah. I worked at KSL for a couple of years. I did an internship with them, and I was their overnight board operator on the weekend. And it never really panned out as far as getting a job with them. I think part of it was I graduated in 2010, so things were still really in a crunch because of the recession. And while I was working through school, I was working at a local credit union at America First as a loan officer. Got really sick of trying to talk about politics all the time. I had written and started blogs related to politics, and it was always really heavy, but I wanted to get my voice as sharp as I could and get better at communicating and get better at expressing myself. I'd always been pretty conscientious of my style. I went to a private school up in Sugar House, and even in junior high, I really hated having to wear uniforms. Hated it. I got suspended in 8th grade because I had such a bad attitude about having to wear uniforms.
It's like Cruella de Vil or something.
Right?
Honestly.
Especially because so this would have been, this would have been like 98, 99. I was really involved in BMX and punk rock. And so I wanted green Liberty spikes and battle jackets with band patches and the whole works. And so I found myself just even in junior high in these two tribes that were very disparate in their identities and what those markers were. One was the gray slacks and the navy blazer with the rep stripe tie, and then the other was the whole punk rock ethos in that. But at the same time, the one thing that they had in common was how important it was that you looked the part. Because I got suspended from school because I had a bad attitude about wearing the uniform. But if I went to a show and I didn't look the part there, then I was a poser and I didn't belong in that environment either. And so it became apparent to me really early on how much appearance was not only something that really correlated with how much other people perceived me, but even more so how much dissonance there was with my own identity. Because part of me liked the private school and I believed in the doctrines of the church, and part of me really liked this whole punk rock attitude and middle fingered everything and to go to hell. And so how do you do a synthesis with this? And I had no idea about any of it. Same thing with on my mission. I think every single interview I had with my first mission president, you gotta part your hair, elder, which is ironic that I do it now without even thinking about it. It was like this thorn in my side where I would argue with my mission president every interview because I thought it was the dumbest thing. And to me, it felt like a complete betrayal of myself, that I would have to conform to this level. And so my appearance has always been something that I've really associated my identity with. And so we can kind of come back to this time of wanting to write, not wanting to write about politics, thinking, okay, well, let's write about clothes. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in understanding kind of the deeper implications of this. So I started a little blog called Masculine Style and just started kind of hitting on this topic. It was fun because a lot of guys, when they talk about anything related to style, and I'm really good friends with most of like the big YouTube accounts and the big fashion blogs and stuff like that, and they're really good guys. But one of the things that is limited is that most of the time they will take the approach of like, here are the 5 shoes that are going to be on trend this summer, right? And I don't really care about that much. I'm much more interested in why are we told as men that it's stupid or gay or effeminate to care about our looks? Like, where did that come from? And has that always been the case? And so I was always trying to dig into these deeper things. And so that's what I would write about. I would write about how it related to attracting women. I would write about how it related to self-perception. I would write about stuff like that. Did that for quite a few years. And in 2012, so coming up on 10 years, we were about to have our first daughter. I was making $13 an hour at the time at the credit union, could not find a better job. And we both knew that we wanted my wife to be able to stay home full time. And there was just no way to do that on my making $13 an hour. And so I thought, well, I've been getting enough emails that all seem relatively similar. Maybe there's a business opportunity related to the blog. And so the month that she was born, I started offering $25 style consultations. And it was, I'll tell you what colors look good on you. I'll tell you brands that you can buy for sport coats and jeans and stuff like that. And it's so funny I just laugh at how minimal and how simple that is now. Mm-hmm. But I made I think it was $431 that first month. And so it was enough that we only had to borrow a little bit off the credit card, but we could make it work. Okay?
Wow.
We go forward about 3 months, still really just kind of scrimping. I hated the credit union. I hated that job so much.
I'm sorry,
Everyone's
what year
laughing.
This was 2012.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're good.
That's
Everyone's had
important
a
to me,
job
'cause
like
of-
that.
Yeah.
I want to get out.
There's a local suit company called Beckett and Robb. You guys heard of these
Yeah,
guys?
down Riverwoods.
They have one in the river, or they used to have one in the Riverwoods. Their
moved?
main shop was in downtown Salt Lake.
Nice.
I had connected with those guys a little bit because I was always looking for new content for the blog. And so I reached out to their owners and I went in one day just to really kind of like introduce myself. And I walked out 4 hours later with some new friends and a job offer to run their Salt Lake shop. Yeah, which was rad, right? I loved it.
Did you have a beard then?
I did have a beard then.
Okay,
Yep.
just checking.
I shaved it like 3 months later because I was really getting into suits and I wanted to look like Harvey Specter. I don't look like Harvey Specter.
Harvey Specter.
I have a weak chin without a beard.
Exactly, right?
We gotta rewind a little bit. When did you first have the beard?
Nice.
2007.
Right after the mission.
Right, no, not quite. I got home in 2005. It was 2007. We did a family trip to Cancun. I didn't shave for a couple weeks. I thought, I kind of like this. And so the only times I've shaved it since were trying to look like Harvey Specter,
Excellent.
dressing up as my little brother for Halloween, and my boxing bout in 2018. Because you can't have a beard when you box if you're under the age of 35 if you're not in the master's class. But those are the only times in the last like 20 years that I've not had a beard.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, okay. So get a job offer, and I ended up working for Beckett and Robb. Worked with them for about 4 years, and I loved it. The guys were great. The company was awesome. I helped them open up stores in Denver, in Seattle. I helped them open up the Riverwood shop and one up in Farmington. I was kind of like overseeing all their store operations, and it was fun. Like I got to go to Florence, Italy, and go to these trade shows and get to wear all these really cool suits. And at the same time, I'm doing Masculine Style, trying to turn it into YouTube stuff and do all these other things. And so I was navigating both of these at the same time. And it felt like every 3 or 4 months, I kept getting pulled back and forth of like, okay, I'm just gonna ditch Masculine Style and I'm gonna go all in on Beckett and Robb. Or it's like, I'm frustrated with this because the company's not growing as well, or I don't have as much autonomy as I want. So let's go into just Masculine Style full time. So February 2017, I'm down in Salt Lake. And I go do an initiatory session in the Salt Lake Temple. And one of the most powerful promptings I've ever gotten is it's time to leave and do Masculine Style full time. It's time to go all in on this. So I go to work that day. It was oh, you guys. Okay, let me tell you how big of a risk this was. I come home that night. In 2016, Masculine Style's total revenue was $16,000. I had 3 kids and a full-time like stay-at-home wife.
Whoa.
And it was time to take that chance. Here's my favorite part of this whole experience, is I come home that night and I tell my wife,
Hey, go get it.
yeah.
Get in here, big boy.
So I go home and I tell my wife that it's time, and 100% to her credit, she says, awesome, let's do it. I wish you would have started 6 months ago.
Wow.
And I do, I still get emotional
So
thinking about
supportive.
that. So supportive. My wife has always been my biggest cheerleader. She's been more loyal to me than anybody else, and the fact that she's been Team Tanner, especially related to business the whole time, has just been phenomenal. So come home, we go through that. I give my notice to these guys, and March 1st, 2017 is my first year, or my first day of being self-employed full-time. I think that first year, I really kind of struggled back and forth between trying to do YouTube, because I built up, I think it was 27,000 subscribers on there.
Sweet.
But it wasn't enough to really do what all my friends did, which is these guys have millions of subs and they will charge $10,000 to do a sponsored video. One, I didn't have a big enough audience to do it. 2, it's really easy when you say these are the 5 shoes to wear this summer, and number 3 happens to be the guys that are paying me 10 grand to tell you this. It's very different when you're doing videos that are things like how style is related to war. Like, people don't sponsor stuff like that. You know, you get into this deeper philosophical stuff, and there was never really any cohesive way to get brands or partnerships in there. I always felt like I was whoring myself out if I tried to do affiliate stuff. And I realized that I'm a good teacher. So I thought, well, maybe I can do coaching. And so I'd been self-employed for about 3 months when I thought, let's try and do some real like one-on-one coaching, develop a system that way. And it did okay until I came to the conclusion that the audience that I had built on YouTube was guys that were already really into men's style, and they identified as being into and being really good at men's style. They're not gonna pay a guy a couple grand to work with him. It's a blow to their ego that they would hire somebody to teach them to do something that they already pride themselves at being really good at. At the time, I had a little bit of a Twitter following. I think I'd built up an audience of like 2,000-3,000. But I realized that my Twitter audience was very different. It was guys that were unapologetically masculine and very much focused on masculine self-development. And so if I could target these guys and help them realize that yes, your fitness matters, your finances matter, being able to understand the fundamental differences between men and women matter, and also your style matters too. That was when I found what my target audience was, and that was when my business really started to take off. So once I made a few grand, by the time I finished my first year, I'd done $70,000, so it was more than I ever made for Beckett and Rob, and it was enough to be able to make things work.
Whoa.
It's continued to grow. I've continued to build an audience. I've continued to kind of change my prices and change my structure. And this year, I'm so pissed about it. I missed being able to do $1,000 in the first quarter, or $100,000 in the first quarter by $2,000. So I was almost there this year for my first quarter. Yeah, and so it just continued to grow, and we've continued to be blessed. I will tell you that one of the biggest ways that it grew is I've always prided myself, and I think a lot of my audience, both the guys that become clients and even the guys that don't, really they resonate with my, for lack of a better term, my authenticity.
Nice.
One of my favorite things to hear is, you're the same person on the internet as you are when I meet you in person. And I found that wasn't entirely the case, because when I would talk about things related to the gospel, it was always in a kind of sneaky way, where, I mean, you guys, I would literally like mine things from general conference talks and teach those principles on Twitter, and just not talk about it related to God or to Christ or the Book of Mormon or anything
Somebody
else.
from Utah, like, you run into that.
Exactly.
You gotta be careful.
You gotta
in
be
this
careful.
state especially.
Right. But you don't have to be careful, or at least I didn't have to be careful, because I found that, and this is another one where I had one of those promptings, which was build the kingdom, like use this, you guys know the parable of the talents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed to stop looking at the talents as being something that was being profitable for me or even profitable for my family, and it was something that I had an obligation to use them all and make them profitable for the Lord. And so I went all in on just being as explicit about my testimony on Twitter as I was explicit about masculinity or why style matters or fitness or any of these other things that matter. And it was terrifying. The first month, I thought, I'm just gonna watch my followers tank, everybody's gonna abandon me, like I'm gonna lose all, like I'm just watching my business go down the drain. And I certainly got a little bit of pushback, but it was maybe 10% of what the response was. And for the other 90%, they were even more loyal to me than they ever were, and that was when my audience really started to take off, and that's when my business really started to take off too.
Wow.
And so the Lord really has blessed me to be able to provide a good income for my family. My wife has never had to worry about working. That's not true. We were poor for a number of years, but now we're not. But she gets to be home full time. I get to work from home. I probably do, as far as my availability for clients, they get 20 hours a week that they have access to me. Every Tuesday I'm here at the temple because I get to set my schedule and do that. Every Friday I'm up skiing with my kids or at the pool with my kids because I try to make them a priority. Like I get to set what I want, and that means that I get to focus on things other than business, ways that I can magnify my callings, way that I can be more involved as a dad, ways that I can build brotherhood with my other friends, because those are other talents that the Lord wants me to be able to use. It's not just the business talents, it's these others too. And so it's been such a fun blessing and such a fun challenge to figure out how to be able to take something that most men don't care about. They even feel a little bit of resistance to the idea that they should care about, and help them embrace that it's an incredibly, like, men have always cared about their appearance. The 20th century is this weird blip, but men have always cared about their appearance. And it's not just costly apparel or, you know, tinkling cymbals and vanity. Like there's real, when you do it the right way, there's real goodness and real godliness in it. And to be able to help men understand that, and then to be able to use the audience that I've built to also, I've had multiple guys that have reached out and said, you know, there was something, you posted a link to this talk, or you're talking about this principle, and I reached out and I've had missionaries come over. You know, and you guys, I had a terrible attitude as a missionary. I worked, but I had a bad attitude about it, and I was not very successful as a missionary. I have been much more successful in missionary efforts in the last 3 years of just being unapologetic about my faith on the internet than I ever was in my time in the mission field. I'm really grateful that I've been able to have that other opportunity as well. So that's basically the story. So what I would like to do with you guys is, one, field any questions, because I know that that's kind of like the 30,000 foot view, and like I said, there's nothing off limits. Like, I'm happy to go in deep, and then we can talk about anything. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I mean, let's just hit me with your first one. What can I do to be valuable to you guys?
Oh man, I'm trying to think of which one I want to start
I've
with.
got a good
We've got too
question.
many.
I think I've got a question.
Okay,
So
go.
you talk about now how your clients have 20 hours, a week that you're available to essentially clients, right? But I would assume that when you were first starting, that wasn't the case. And so I'm curious if in your honest estimation, like how many hours when you were first starting off, really working full time, with masculine style, how much time you're spending a week, and then what the divide of time was between spending time with clients, doing research, et cetera, when you were spending those hours.
Very good questions. One of the things that I found early on is that you have to make your time off the clock sacred and non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And I think that was easier for me because I already had 3 kids. And so I didn't have to, like, it's really hard when you're single to set any boundaries because who cares, right?
Yeah.
But when I already had 3 kids, it was, I'm done at 6 every night because I want to do bedtime with my kids and I want to have time with my wife. I don't even log onto social media on Sundays because I found that even if I'm scrolling, then my brain goes into work mode, and so Sundays are just like a hard no on anything related to that. But at first, it was definitely a lot more hours than it is now. And that was one of the weird things is I remember, like, the first 2 months that I was working for myself, I would go into the library up in Riverton just so that my wife would think that I was being productive for 8 hours a day. Because you guys know what it's like. You're not productive for 8 hours a day every day. Right? And then it started to turn into like, oh, can you like sneak away to come help me out with this stuff? And so then I would spend less and less time so I could be more involved. And then eventually it was just like, and so I'm renting an office now because for most of the time I've worked at home, and it started to veer the other direction where it was, if dad's not on a call, dad's available. And that can't be the case either, right? Like there's all this other stuff. And so that kind of ties into your second point as far as like research or content creation or time with clients. I'm bad at this. I'll just be honest. Like I'm not a schedule guy. I'm really disciplined with a lot of stuff. I'm disciplined with I lift 3 days a week without fail. I'm disciplined with my diet. But when it comes to that other stuff, I just kind of follow the emotion. Where if I really feel like I just did my first live event. I had 8 clients fly out. We did a full weekend together. It was awesome. Eric Peterson was one of those. He's in the group. And
You guys know her.
it was,
Surprised he's not here today.
yeah, he's in Belize.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of course,
Right?
no wonder.
Yeah.
Silly.
And so I found that if I just kind of follow my own energy, and again, not to the exclusion, like sadly, there's still times just like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. I have a lot of emails I should be answering right now, but there's still this element of like, I still have this weakness of, there are arenas where I need to be more disciplined, but at the same time, I found that if I tried too hard to force myself to be disciplined, then it became that everything was an energy drain and I had no energy to put into something else. And so it's really hard finding the balance between allowing myself to follow the energy, but at the same time being disciplined where I need to be disciplined. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, what else? Go.
You said you blogged. You started blogging, and so I would guess from there you did that before YouTube, right?
Yes.
Because I mean, like YouTube was still kind of, I mean, it's still in its infancy now if you want to look on a grand scale, but it was even more in its infancy. It was still in utero, like in 2012, right?
Yeah.
And so I just asked, like, did blogging help you get into more YouTube? And I asked this as a very selfish reason. I'm actually trying to launch a YouTube channel like Monday.
Oh,
you know,
cool.
So like it's kind of.
So what are you worried about as far as YouTube? Like, what are you?
I'm afraid of people seeing my face. I'm afraid of talking. I'm afraid of looking vain. I'm afraid of looking like a narcissist. I'm afraid of talking about myself and being all about me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep the focus on the content and not me, but it has to be about you because I've spent 5 years just like I want a YouTube channel, trying to find a way around putting my face on camera, trying to hire actors, trying to do all these things, everything. But and so I'm just wondering, did blogging help you with that?
No.
Or so it was like, at what point you? So I don't really know what my question is. I'm just saying, like, at what point was it like, shoot, I gotta kill the rhino, right? Like that's a horrible analogy, but yeah,
you just gotta
Kill the rhino.
go out and shoot the dog, right?
Here's the nice thing.
What
Nobody
point
cares
did-
about your channel. Nobody's gonna watch it.
Thank you.
You're gonna put
I appreciate that.
You're gonna put in so many reps that are gonna like. You guys should go look up my very first video. It's awful. Like it's on an iPhone in a back alley, and the lighting is terrible. The audio sucks. I'm stumbling all over my words. Nobody cares.
Nice.
And you have to be anywhere between like 50 to 100 videos in to even know what your voice is, to even know what your cadence is, what kind of stuff you want to do, what's going to be unique about what you're offering. You just got to put in the reps.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't worry about how the world is going to see those because no matter what you do right now, it's going to suck and you're going to be embarrassed about it.
Okay.
And so you just got to do it because the only way to get through that is not analyzing or preparing or planning or pontificating, it's just doing it. Like that's embarrassment is the cost of entry. And I mean, you get this from fighting. You get guys who come in and it doesn't matter how much Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris you've watched. Your body does not know how to do those things. And it's humiliating and embarrassing and humbling to spend time doing taekwondo or boxing or something else. And the only way you get good at it is if you just nut up and keep going even though you're embarrassed and it hurts. Yeah. So same thing with YouTube. Same thing with anything else. You just got to put in the reps. So start on Monday.
Okay. Thank you. I guess second would be sorry if I'm hogging. I just it's kind of a follow up on that is the transparency is the next thing. Then my next fear is also skeletons in the closet, things like that, and who I am. If my room's clean enough.
Right.
You know, like I don't want to do a YouTube channel until my whole house is clean.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I mean. It's like what's the difference between being fake and like cleaning up one corner of your house just to film that one corner, and the difference between actually living that way. You know what I mean? Like putting yourself out there without. How did you break through that facade, and at what point did you find yourself like in this half facade?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then what's your
So
struggle with
I'll
that?
give you a little more context to the story. One of the reasons that I couldn't find a better job was because I had been previously married. I went through a very ugly divorce that involved, we had a condo together and we bought it in 2008 and I got divorced in 2010, 2011. and we had to, like, part of the divorce decree was I had to get my ex-wife's name off the condo. Couldn't do it. So she sued for contempt of court, and I had to serve 48 hours in jail. And so when you did a Google search for Tanner Guzy, a very common name that everybody shares, you would find my mugshot, and you would find all of these blog posts from her friends and family about how awful of a person I was.
Oh, jeez.
So nobody was going to hire somebody like that, right? And that was one of the reasons why when I started Masculine Style, it was I had written it pseudonymously, and then I decided to use my real name because it was all just damage control to try to take care of that. Now, that's one of the things that people really appreciate about knowing about my story, because the problem with so many of like gurus and influencers, I mean, you guys, it's fake. It's fake.
Yeah.
It's always just a highlight reel, and you feel like an idiot because your life isn't as good as theirs. And there's a big difference between, like, well, let me live stream the fight I'm having with my wife right now so I can be real to my wife. You know, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you've done some level of something to address the skeletons in your closet, to overcome your demons, to fight them, that's what people want to see, because they want to see redemption. They want to know that they're not trapped where they are, or they want to see even that you aren't necessarily trapped where you are, and you're not even at the pinnacle yet, but you're still making forward progress, however slogging it may be on the mountain. And so, no, you do not have to have all of your ducks in a row and everything else. I would say, to the extent that you're comfortable, lean into those skeletons, because it will make people trust your message even more, and you'll be able to do more good with it.
Thank you, Tanner.
Yeah.
You gotta lean into the fear.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Good.
Right there.
Good. I'm glad that that's helpful. What else, guys? What else can I answer
I have
for
a
you?
question.
Yes.
So, in terms of content creation,
Yeah.
for me, like, there's definitely moments where, like, things just flow, you know? Like, you have the photo, and then you, like, write the words on Instagram or whatever, and it all just flows. Then there's other times where, like, I talk to people, and they're like, you need to be posting every day, and I'm like, yeah, I know I should, but then I'll be sitting there, like, the next day after I've made a phenomenal post, and then I'm like, what do I post? Like, should I just take a picture of me by the fridge? And then, like, and then I'm like, but what do I say? Like, nothing's there, but I'm like, I know I need to be posting if I want to grow an audience.
Right.
Like, how did you, like,
This is my
I don't
fridge
know.
post.
develop that system to just keep pushing out content?
So this is another one of those where I've been all over the place, where I've written an email every day for 6 months, or I did YouTube and I was doing 3 videos a week, or I was doing 1 video every year, or I was posting on Instagram all the time this, or not doing anything at all. And again, I found that, one, I need to know where the energy is, because a lot of times when you're just putting out content to put out content, it sucks and people know it, right? And so when you're in your spurts, take those spurts, and when you're not, then take the breaks. But at the same time, it is worth developing the skill set to be able to create something and communicate something even when you don't feel like it. So what I would recommend you do is, every once in a while, give yourself a challenge. I'm in the middle of one of these right now, where I'm trying to get better. I'm capitalizing on Instagram rewarding reels, and also wanting to build a TikTok audience. And so I'm trying to do a streak of posting up something every day for as long as I can. And a lot of times it really does suck, where it's like, I don't feel like it. Or I missed one 2 weeks ago because my wife blew out her ankle playing soccer and we didn't have time. You know, like, it just, so things happen, but that doesn't mean, it's the same thing with fitness, where some days it's really easy to stay on point, like hit your calories and hit your macros and you're good. And other days you're just like, you know what, screw it, it's pizza and Netflix binge, and that doesn't mean that it turns into 6 months of that, but you just let it be a cheat day or a cheat day off with social media, but you get back into the rhythm of things and let it flow that way.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And it's just as much of a muscle to grow. Content creation is just as much of a muscle to grow as your biceps or your quads.
Do you ever double dip with, like, sort of, you do a video and then you, like, put it on another one?
Oh,
like,
totally.
Same dip. Like,
Totally. All of my reels are also going to TikTok, and I'm going to start posting them up on YouTube too. Yeah, if it's, a lot of times they tell you're recommended not to do that. But what I've found is that most of the time, people now are kind of siloed into whatever their platform of choice is. You know,
Right.
and so somebody who's following me on TikTok probably isn't spending as much time on Instagram or anything.
I don't even have a TikTok.
Exactly, right? So yeah, the only reason I'm even on TikTok is my demographic's not there. Guys who are going to pay me to work with me for a few months to teach them about, it's guys that are making at least 6 figures and doing even better than that, and they're not on TikTok. But my kids are going to be on TikTok at some point, and I can't bitch about TikTok just being full of like thoughtery and other problems if I'm not willing to create good content and put it on TikTok too.
Amen.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I'm on there, is trying to create a better environment and more of the content that I would like to see. Ooh, I'm gonna rail on that for a little bit. Okay.
Yes.
This is one of the things that I find really frustrating, is we find ourselves, I think we see this in the church, we see this a lot. This is why I don't consider myself to be a conservative from a political standpoint. We're losing the culture war because we don't engage in culture creation. We don't create film, we don't create art, we don't create architecture, we don't create clothing, we don't create social media content, and if we do, it's just really lame, like, here's the logical reasons why the right is this, or here's this really kind of cheesy Jesus take the wheel type Christian thing that's really too heavy-handed in other ways. It's really frustrating for me that we don't fight the culture war with culture, and so that's one of the things that I'm trying to do. I do it with my own social media content. I've got a buddy of mine that we started a men's magazine called Chest Magazine. It's built around the C.S. Lewis quote of we make men without chests and then expect honor and greatness out of them, and so we want to help men, we want to help create men that have chests, and we're trying to showcase men that are artists or that are creating and writing music, or that are building businesses or doing other things, but they're actually fighting the culture war beyond just like hot takes on Twitter pointing out how hypocritical the postmodernists are, because nobody cares. So you have to fight culture by building culture. Yeah.
Cool.
What else?
I'm like trying to think of where to go next.
Someone's got to have something. Come
How do
on.
you usually plan the content?
I don't.
Don't?
Nope. I have a
I love that. That's great.
I have a little note in here
Wakes up and shows up.
that is a list of, like, it's literally a checkbox of potential reels that I can do, and if I have an idea that strikes me, I'll write it down there if I've already done one for that day, and if I don't have one that I feel like doing that day, then I'll scroll through these and think, can't do that one, that's gonna require too much, okay, let's do this one, and that's literally it. Because, again, I found that the best content comes from, my best content is not stuff that I make for an audience, it's stuff that I make to remind myself of. Especially because I'm an extrovert yes, I'm extroverted socially, but I'm a true extrovert in that my best thinking is done out loud in front of or with a group of people. And so my best social media content, the stuff that gets the most traction, the stuff that resonates the most with people, is where I am just thinking out loud, either typing it out on Twitter or posting up a video and doing it, and it's just live and in process. Yeah. So I don't know if that works for you, but that's what works for me. Is I don't follow a plan with it. I just write about the stuff that I want to write about, or post about the stuff that I feel like posting about.
Smart.
Yeah.
It's a good business journal.
Yeah. Exactly.
A lot of the people that we've heard in these nights, they talk a lot about mentors and just connections in general. Could you go into maybe any mentors or valuable connections that you've made along the path that have helped you?
Yeah. Mentors is a hard one.
It seems like you kind of blazed your own trail.
Yeah, and I mean, there are definitely guys that I've been really grateful to that have, like, kind of introduced me to their audiences or invited me to come out to speak at their events or things like that. I don't know if I have anybody that's really a mentor as far as like, okay, here's how you take a business like this, and here's how you build it, because I really have kind of blazed my own trail. At the same time, there's no way I would be where I was without other great men who are really good at what they do. Here's my favorite thing that I've learned being involved with guys that are in the masculinity space or the style space or the fitness space or anything else is, and this sounds trite and cliche, but these guys really do live the abundance mindset where they're so stoked to see other people win. There's so little scarcity. There's so little of this like fierce competitiveness where they're really celebrating wins. They want to give you a leg up, and they want to see you help other people get a leg up. And there's something, I don't know, I think there's something very godly about that. And if if you're missing that, then I would recommend start doing that yourself. Start finding ways to help other guys win, and then the other guys who are winning, they'll see that and they'll start trying to find ways to help you win too. Yeah.
It's just fire. Fire, bro.
I want to know what's one of the coolest, kind of like transformation, like with your clients. What's one of the coolest, biggest changes you've seen in someone from the time you started working with them to the time you were done with them?
Cool. Okay, so I've got two good examples for this. One is more of kind of like the transformations that you would expect to see. How many of you guys, do you know who Greg O'Gallagher is?
Yeah.
Do you know Kino Body?
Kino Body.
Yeah, he was big on YouTube for a little while. He's a fitness guy. He does like the real Bruce Wayne videos.
He always talked about like DEXA scans.
Yes,
stuff, right?
yes, that's him. Yeah, look him up after.
Yeah.
Greg's been a friend of mine for about 10 years. And when we first started working together, we did some trade where I did style coaching for him. He did some fitness stuff for me. And when we first started working together, he was your typical like fitness bro. And he was always just in his workout gear, and that was very much the brand. And I helped him kind of develop this idea of, no, you need to be multidimensional because you've got so much more to bring to the world in fitness. Like it's this whole lifestyle thing.
Can I interject? You know, like the V-Shred guy. I don't know his name.
Yes.
Whenever I saw Greg or his commercials or ads on YouTube, I always associated him with like the V-Shred guy. Is he a pretty legit guy?
Greg is awesome.
Okay.
Like he really does live the douchebag playboy lifestyle. Like his dad was worth millions. He lives in like these massive, like he's hanging out with hot girls and driving fast cars and but same thing, massive abundance mindset. Okay. Greg is so stoked to see other guys win.
There's enough women to go around.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough hot cars.
He's
We
happy
can
to
all
share
have a
them.
sports
He's
car.
happy to share them. No, Greg's the real deal, and his transformations are still some of the best I've ever seen.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really fun as we were working together to help him kind of realize that it's like, no, you're not just about the physique, it's about the lifestyle. It's about that this is a supplement to the kind of lifestyle that you want to lead, and we need to have your clothing start to reflect that too. A lot of fitness guys are, and so Greg's probably one of the best as far as like really teaching somebody how to tell a fuller story. And I haven't had to give Greg style advice for years. All this stuff that he's doing is totally on his own, and he's totally self-sufficient. So there's that one. I have another one that just happened a few months ago where he's an attorney down in the Vegas area. He's got a couple of young kids, and we were doing one of our calls, and he was talking to me, and it was really touching. He started to get emotional. He started to tear up, and he's telling me that because he started dressing differently when he's at home, because he's just put in a little bit more effort, and he's not dressed up, but he's just cared a little bit more about what he's wearing at home. He finds himself feeling more present when he's around his kids, and he's less inclined to be on his phone. He's less inclined to be distracted. He's more inclined to see himself as a dad and as a father, and then to follow through and act like that. And so to know that I get to help dads be dads in a more meaningful way just by helping them even with their clothing in that limited of a space, that was one of the best transformation stories I've heard.
That's super cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So I missed the first part, but how I guess I'm just wondering what you coach people and you post like motivational YouTube videos. Is that what
I don't do much of YouTube anymore.
Okay,
I'm polarizing on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
I mean, I really am, because I'm unapologetically in favor of traditional gender roles. I'm unapologetically in favor of the doctrines of the church. I'm very vocal about my membership in the church. And I'm also very much in favor of, Twitter's a boxing arena, right? It's a boxing ring. Like, you don't come to Twitter to be nice. You don't come to Twitter for nuance. Like, you plant your flag. Exactly, right? Exactly.
It's only gonna get crazy.
It's gonna get more fun, right? And so I do that, and part of it is male self-development, masculine self-development, and then I help guys understand that clothing is a part of that. And so then my business, the way that I have revenue, is that I work with clients either in groups or one-on-one, and I teach them how to think about their clothing, so that by the time they're done working with me, they're not, hey Tanner, can we go shopping? What should I buy for the Christmas party this year? They know exactly what they should do, and they know what the brands are that they should be buying, and they know how they should be putting it together. You guys who saw the TED Talk, it's this aesthetic literacy. They're just as able to communicate through their clothing as they are through their spoken or their written language, and they're totally self-sufficient that way. Yeah, and so that's the goal, is to teach them to get to
I
that
just think
level.
it's so cool.
It's
Well, it's
so
just
fun.
like, because it's like, I mean, half of what people see is what you look like. The other half is what you're saying, probably. But it's just like, because that's who you are, but this is who you are before that. And it's just like,
well, not only what other people see, even more importantly, is what you see. Because you see yourself in the mirror every morning. You see yourself on Zoom calls. You see yourself all the time. And so what's the story you're telling yourself?
right.
Is it somebody who's still growing and developing and learning? One of my favorite clients was a guy who he just sent his youngest son off to school, and he was getting ready to make a career change, and he'd left IBM and was now going to work for run his own company, and he had seen all of his peers that like retired and became empty nesters, and they just deteriorated. And he's like, I don't want to become that. I don't want to see myself that way. I need help changing the way that I see myself, so that I see myself not as like I'm trying to be young, because I'm not, but I'm still willing to keep growing and keep moving. And that's absolutely what he's done with his style. And so the one of the biggest misconceptions that we have is 90% of the value of our clothing is what it does as far as the way that other people see us, and maybe 10% is self-perception. And flip that. It's 90% self-perception and 10% how other people see us and treat us. Yeah.
So that self-perception affects your body
Everything.
language and everything.
And your self-perception affects your others' perception of you.
Right. That's
Sure.
the thing. Is
Yeah.
It's this beautiful synergy of
Yeah.
if I like the way that I look and I feel like I look like the best version of myself, then I start to believe that about myself. So I carry myself that way, or I take more social risks or more financial risks, and I do it in a way that I've got the confidence that I can execute on that. And then people will see that and they will treat me that way. And so I start to believe that more about myself, and I act that way and I embody it more, than people start to see it and treat me that way. And so it really does just go up and up and up that way.
Do you have any quotes about clothing that you really like? Kind of like the dress for the job you
Yeah,
want kind
I
of
actually
thing?
really
like,
love, I've never been able to find,
a great line.
yeah, I never been able to find if it's Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, but there's the quote that in matters of principles stand firm like a rock, and in matters of fashion swim with the current. Yeah, and especially I love that one because these guys were older men, and you think about a big river like the Mississippi River, right? And there's no consistent current. Like you have really fast parts, which is what you should be doing when you're in high school and when you're in your early 20s. And then you have slower, more steady parts, which is where you should be when you're in your 30s, your 40s or on up. Where you never want to be is in this like dead water where it's stagnant and it's gone. And this is where you get guys, sadly, this is where like most of my peers dress. I'm 38. And most of my peers still dress like it's 2002, 2005, because that's when they were like at their most individual. That was when they were at their peak. And it's like, you're just dead in the water.
Stuck.
You look like you peaked in high school or you peaked in college, and like that was when your life ended.
I have friends like that.
Yeah,
Really
right?
good friends like that.
Exactly. And at the same time, I don't want to dress like I'm 18 and all my value is built on, can I follow the latest trends? Because I can and should and do have more of my own credibility and authority and dignity and accomplishments under my own belt, that I don't need to rely on my ability to understand trends to signal my value. I've got value that's been demonstrated in other ways. And so it's this really fun balance that changes when you're younger, when you're middle-aged, when you're older, and learning how to navigate that's really fun, and it's
So
really
you still
helpful.
try and dress with styles, but not like the latest, like you're not.
What he's trying to say is
Yeah.
that I should start wearing ankle socks with pants finally. I've been holding on.
Oh, yeah,
I've
right?
been holding out.
Well, the problem is now it's a dying trend, so.
I'm gonna have to get your business card.
You need a fashion coach.
Yeah, okay, so like one of the things that we're seeing a lot of now are like really full kind of looser drapier cuts. I've got a couple guys that I follow that are, in London and New York, and they're doing stuff like that. And if I were 22, then I would be all over that.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm 37. You're 22? Okay, you can do that. Play with that.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, but I mean, really, like you've got all of this social capital that you can spend on experimentation with your aesthetic, right? And when you get older, you have more social capital, but you don't need to spend it on your aesthetic. You need that to help build more of that social capital. Does that make sense?
You invested differently?
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like, I don't know, if you're more of an athletic build, you spend a lot of time bodybuilding, etc. I feel like that current trend towards a more drapier kind of 90s-esque style is not going to flatter you as much as it is the person that's not spending any time in the gym. Am I wrong?
Disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah, because here's the thing.
I want to hear this.
Yeah, I'll break this down.
I'm really
I'll break this down for you. Because when you're bigger and you're trying to cover, whether you're scrawnier or you're bigger, if you're wearing stuff that's full, it either makes you look even scrawnier because you can't fill it out at all, or it looks like, dude, we know you're not hiding any size, and now you just look sloppy too, right? And so when you're in good shape, then it actually complements your physique pretty well. This is also one of the things that I think we're going to see more and more of, is the middle road is disappearing. We've been taught that, and I think we're going to see that. We're seeing that physically, and we're seeing that aesthetically as well, where there are no just like average shape people. You've either got like massive obesity and other problems related to this, or you've got people that take good care of themselves. And clothing is going to start to move that way too, where you're going to start to see people that dress in a way that you can only pull off if you're in good shape, and it looks bad if you're not in good shape, or you're going to see people continue to embrace the anti-aesthetic and ugliness for its own sake and all of that too. So I think we're going to see less and less of this ambivalence and more either intentional ugliness or more intentional kind of beauty and dignity in what we're wearing. Yeah.
I think it's so cool how you're like, unapologetically, you know, it's genders, you know, and I think that because it speaks to your brand, your like masculinity. Is that, I mean, I feel like in fashion, it's become such a mix and a wish and a wash of like, guys are dressing like chicks and chicks are dressing like dudes. Do you really stand out in fashion as far as your brand?
That's a good question. I don't know if I do, and I don't know if I want to.
Okay.
Because the main thing that I want, and granted, I know I dress a little bit more aggressively. I dress more aggressively than I would recommend most of my clients do. But that's because that's part of my brand, is I have to be the style guy. The main thing, and this is where a lot of people get things confused, is a lot of that fashion is basically the person wearing it is the mannequin for either the clothing or the ideology that the clothing represents.
Sure.
Where most men should be is that you are full and complete, and you are a main character. You're multidimensional. You're somebody that's worth knowing. You're somebody that's high value, and your clothing is there to supplement and to support you. So you're the primary visual. Your clothing plays a supporting role. Whereas with a lot of this other stuff, the clothing and the ideology that it supports are the primary thing, and you as the person wearing it are the supplementary role. You're just the mannequin. And so the goal is not to stand out. And here I'll give you, this is one of the things I teach my clients, is there's almost this like spectrum of attention, right? Kind of breaking your brain.
I mean, I'm just blown away. I'm like, clothes. My mom said, keep your shirt on. I said, no. And now it's like.
Which is good when you're little. You need all that sun exposure. My son never has his shirt on. Okay, so think about the spectrum of attention. Most guys, okay, tell me if this, and you guys dress pretty well, so this may not be the case for you. Most guys, when they talk about their clothing, they will say, well, I don't care how it looks as long as it's comfortable, right? You guys have heard that. You've probably said that to some extent. And what's interesting is what they're saying, or what they think they're saying, is I don't care as long as it's physically comfortable. What they're really saying is I don't care as long as it's socially and from a pressure standpoint comfortable. I don't want to dress so poorly that I stand out negatively, but I also don't want to dress so well that I stand out positively, because if I stand out, then you may expect something of me. You may ask me to do something. You may see me as a leader. You may see me as competent. You maybe see me as somebody that's worth, and I just want to disappear. I don't want to deal with the pressure because I'm not at work, or I'm not doing, I just want to disappear, and that's how most guys are, sadly. Then you get into this other stuff like the androgyny and the Harry Styles and the fashion and everything else, and these guys are over here on the other side of the spectrum, which is I have no sense of my self-worth. I have no real value whatsoever, and you have to pay attention to me. If I am not the center of attention, I have no idea who I am. I have no idea what my value is. I cannot be in a room and not be the main thing that everybody's paying attention to. So I'm gonna dress in a way, this is pretty crass, but it's probably the best visual. I'm gonna dress in a way that visually rapes you and forces you to pay attention to me, right? Like I'm just going to assert myself to the point where you can't ignore me. A healthy man should be right here in the middle, which is I'm gonna dress in a way that, please pay attention to me. Notice that I have some dignity and some self-respect. But also, you don't have to pay attention to me. You can notice me and move on. I'm not so desperate for your approval that I'm constantly begging for it. That's where you guys should be. That's where most of us should be.
So I have a question, and I think you're just okay. Obviously not like, anyway. But I do have some close friends, maybe family, but they they don't care how they look. And I can see, and I felt that way too. And honestly, I think it's when you don't care how you look, it's because you don't care about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're ugly, you're not that attractive. Mm-hmm. So you say, I don't care how I look, in a way to like play off like, oh, I don't care.
You can't fire me, I quit. I'm already rejecting the idea
so
of this.
So it's like, it's really sad, because I felt that way before too, plenty of times. So what do you say to them to like, and even to yourself at times to get out of that rut, you know. But to not offend them, but to be like, look, like, you don't look great right now. You can dress better. I know you can. And I don't know, like without.
Don't start with your clothing. Work out. Lift weights.
Okay.
Because I used to work with guys that that their first kind of step in self-development was clothing. And those were the clients that I always had the hardest time with because it doesn't take, because it feels too superficial. Because what it does is you have how you see yourself right now. And when I do my job right, there's this bit of dissonance between how I see myself right now and how I dress. And you want there to be a gap there. Because what it does is it forces you to pull yourself up to match where that gap is, so there's congruence and authenticity. But the problem is you already have to have some momentum of self-development. And clothing is the worst place to start with that. You have to start with it with improving your relationships, with getting your finances in order. But the most effective one is learning how to use your body and getting strong and getting capable and all of that. And it's also the thing that's going to look aesthetically the best too. And so don't start with your clothing. Don't have them start with clothing. And it's amazing how when you start to like the way you look in the mirror in a towel or when you don't have a shirt on, how much more you find yourself going, oh, I actually kind of do care how I look, and I want to have clothing that reflects this new sense of who I am too.
Right.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah.
No, I was agreeing to that.
How much? I would ask how much financially you spend on clothing, but I think that's kind of a personal question. I think more.
I do have more clothes than my wife does. That's probably the only thing.
It seems like you're constantly upgrading too, right? Like you're going to be always buying clothing. But I asked the main question though. The thing I'm more curious about is how much space do you dedicate, right? Versus how often are you getting rid of clothing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's something that drives me crazy. I do Black Friday shopping every year. That's where I get these pants Black Friday, you know?
Yeah.
And they match the couch apparently, so I don't know if I call them that.
I was about to say, where are your legs?
My tan ones were I have some tan ones, but I only have one pair.
It's like camouflage.
But I know.
I was gonna have your picture on the front of this, but we're gonna have that. So we're gonna have his pants in the couch and be like, fashion.
Might be a faux pas, I don't know. But that's the thing is that I've struggled.
I don't know how
with that.
you didn't prepare by knowing what the couch was going to be.
Sat in the chair, making a mistake.
Should have let you guys
But I
know.
struggle with that flow of clothing and
Okay.
clothing out, you know, and then also I guess. I think that's
Okay, so the way that because there's no objective right or wrongs here, and I think this is one of the other things that's really interesting is we almost have this like moral connection of how much clothing should I own or how much should I be spending on it or is it right or wrong?
I have hoarders in my family.
Okay,
so.
there you go, right? The way that I teach my clients is I want you to think about energy boosts versus energy drains, okay?
We
For
get
some
into Marie
guys,
Kondo.
yeah. But for some guys, it's an energy boost to have a super minimal, incredibly versatile closet and to have a personal uniform that they don't have to think about it. You can roll out of bed and just get dressed and you don't have to think about it at all, especially because you know you look good, right? So if that's more of an energy boost, do that. If it's an energy drain because it feels like, yeah, it looks good, but I don't get to really feel present in different environments because I'm always dressed the same regardless of where I am. Or I don't get to really feel expressive because I've always looked the same regardless of what kind of mood I'm in or who it is that I'm dealing with or anything else like that, then you're going to get more of an energy boost by having a bigger wardrobe with more versatility or with more variety and with more pieces to be able to play with. And so know what your own personal boosts and drains are this is where I would say hire me and work with me and I'll teach you how to do all that, because there's more than just like the size of the closet. It's how much money you want to spend. It's how much time you want to spend thinking about it in the morning. It's, do you want to maximize personality? You want to maximize what you're communicating with other people in your various tribes. Like there's all these other boosts and drains that come in with it. And when you get that calibrated and you figure what those are, not only does it become really easy, but that's when it becomes really freaking fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you prescribe both kind of schools of thought, if you will, to your clientele? Like, hey, if this is where you're comfortable wearing the same thing, wear this. Whereas, I suppose, opposed to that, if you feel like you need to wear something different, do that.
Yeah, I mean, literally what we do on one of our calls is we have this, it's an effort worksheet, and we talk about all these different arenas of effort. And I have them tell me, is this an energy boost? Is it an energy drain? Is it neither? Or is it both because of different elements? And we walk through all of these, and then we look at the contradictions, because maybe for you, shopping is an energy drain, but having a massive closet with a ton of variety is an energy boost. Okay, those contradict each other. So is there something that we can do to make shopping more enjoyable and more of a boost? Do we just have to get you better at it? Or is there something that we can do to make it so that you feel like you have more variety without having to go shopping and do all that? And so that's one of the things I work through with each of my guys, is how do we find this so that it becomes very personal, and then it just becomes at the level that they want it to be.
Sure. Okay. Different question here. You talked about building a culture, right? And I think culture creation is a really cool thing. You said how you've worked with like Greg Gallagher to create a brand. Have you created your own brand, or are you trying to?
Clothing wise?
Yeah, clothing brand. No. Is it something you want to do?
Depends on the day. It depends on the day. I think one of the reasons why that's a struggle for me, and I think this is also one of the reasons why I'm able to do what I do, is a lot of guys who are in my world are very overly simplistic, where it's like menswear and suiting is the only good style and everything else is stupid, or streetwear is the only thing that's good and everything else is stupid. Or it's like rugged, like vintage motorcycle stuff and everything else sucks. And I'm just like, I think this is all pretty cool. And so the idea of trying to build a non-schizophrenic brand of clothing breaks my brain.
So what about multiple brands?
Yeah, right. Well,
I mean that's what I think.
Maybe
right?
when my
I
kids
would
move out.
I would love to create a clothing brand, right?
Exactly.
But
right?
I had the same thought. I think, they might get too schizophrenic. Probably have to create different brands.
Right. Yeah.
You could just have different styles, and then you have what you like the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
you have this over here and that over there.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you the other thing that's that's one of the reasons why I've turned off to that. Two reasons. One is the initial overhead to make it happen.
For sure.
And then the other is that my margins are like 95%. I pay for some software, but other than that, every dollar that comes in goes to me.
Sure.
The idea of having to make much smaller margins off of a physical product and having
Makes sense.
I don't know if I'm wired for that. And there's probably a little bit of like intimidation or just like that's out of my comfort zone. But that's far enough out that it's an energy drain. So it's more of this kind of like hypothetical, it would be really cool and it makes sense for me to do it. But there's all these other things that get in the way, and I just go, I'm not there yet. I'm not ready for it.
Yeah. So I guess, do you prescribe to several different like styles of dress, or do you mostly stick to the same sort of thing usually? Like, are you into like streetwear, suiting, tech wear, all that sort of different stuff?
I find myself going through different seasons where I'm actually in the middle of kind of a transition phase right now, where for the last few years I definitely had a personal uniform where it was jeans and a Henley almost every day. And I will certainly do things like I love wearing good suits to church or stuff like that, but for the most part my like everyday stuff was pretty uniform there. And then I found that started to feel very suffocating, monotonous. There was a lack of expression, and it wasn't necessarily on brand for me either.
Sure.
And so now I'm in this kind of experimental phase where I'm trying to add more rakishness, have more fun, experiment with different things. One thing that I would really love to be able to figure out, and this is where I have to eat my own words and just stop planning and start experimenting more, is I really wish that Utah embraced this like urban pioneer aesthetic. I wish that we would pull from our heritage and that it was something that was right, but it would be really cool if we could do it the right way. Yeah. But the problem is like, what is the right way?
Right.
Yeah. because I wish, like, we, especially as Utah, like the new airport pisses me off. Why does it have to look like a Target? Why can't it look like the temple?
Everyone else is like, it's so pretty. Tanner's
like
just like,
Why is it so inefficient?
all these women love Target. It looks like Target.
When you spend $2 or however many $billion building an airport, you think you go out, ask all the different airports, see what's best, and then come back and build the best thing possible.
You think you'd go ask Tanner?
But this is the problem. This is the problem with Utah culture in general. Is that rather than leaning into being a peculiar people, we're just like, California, please approve of us. And so it is just this like desire to be seen as a major market. And really what we should be doing is saying, no, we're our own people and we're going to do stuff our own way and we're going to make it really, really cool.
God, I love that so much.
Also, Utah sucks. Don't go there.
I know.
Just in case
All
anyone's wondering.
Californians.
If you're from out of state,
So what is an urban?
it sucks here.
No.
If I knew what to do, I'd be doing it.
I just say I hate all the people. Well, not hate. I don't like it when people say like Utah sucks.
No,
And then,
Utah's
don't do anything
rad.
about it. Yeah.
Well, no, I love Utah,
Yeah.
but don't tell them that.
What would you say? Would you say the California is the urban?
Right? Yeah. But even like, okay, so there's a really cool hat shop down here in Springville.
Yeah,
cool.
Called Tat & Baird. And they've been around since like the mid 19th century and they still do like actual beaver fur hats. Yeah, it's awesome. And he has, in fact, I need to take mine in. I had one made a couple years ago for Trek when my wife and I were Ma and Pa on Trek. And now it's like my camp hat and I try and incorporate in other things. But there's even like old traditional Boss of the Plains or cowboy hats, the way that the crown would be folded or pinched would be indicative of like what state you were in or what ranch you belong to or anything like that. And there's even a specific like Utah way that they do it. So I'm going to go in and have him do that. But I wish that we embraced like a little bit more pioneer, a little bit more Native American, a little bit more of the kind of granola, maybe, some of the tech, maybe some of the like mid 20th century, like church Americana. Like I would love to be able to find ways to experiment with all that and create our own unique aesthetic.
I actually have a huge thing. I'm going to try not to go off topic too far here, but I have to plug this.
Yeah.
Is that for anybody who isn't aware of it, and it's usually people from Utah who aren't aware of it, but like all that Utah history and crap, if you slept through it, go back and revisit that because this state is built off of people who are freaking crazy. And BA, this state was founded from nothing, from dirt and dust and granite pulled out of the mountains with bare hands and dynamite, and people like falling and losing limbs and starving, and there's winters and winters, right? And it's built from like nothing and just the city out of nowhere, right? And then people come here and are like, why do the Mormons control everything? It's so stupid. It's like,
built it.
Well, I can tell you, like, they have more claim to this state than any other state in the union. It's a pretty BA history. Like Utah is freaking cool if you look at the history of it. Like it is rugged.
John needs to be like a history teacher.
It's awesome.
My history teacher was 10% of that. I would have
People
liked
that grow up here just like, Utah sucks. Oh, but we finally got an IKEA and we finally got a cheesecake factory. And it's like the dumbest reason to finally get excited about living here. Okay, so speaking of that, go ahead. You like IKEA? That's fine. You can like IKEA. But that's not why Utah's valuable. Okay.
He's like meatballs. I don't know.
Let me show you guys this, because this is one of my ways of experimenting with this. So this symbol is the seal of Melchizedek. This is there's like 10,000 of these on the San Diego temple. Okay, and then this is the same type of stone that Joseph Smith's seer stone was.
Oh my gosh,
Right? Because this is another one of the things, like, we have some of the coolest, most esoteric, most interesting aspects of our faith, and it really sucks that people leave because they think it's weird instead of staying because it's so cool. And I think that culturally it's one of those things that we should be leaning into instead of shying away from, that we should be embracing our uniqueness instead of trying to be as normal and as Protestant as we possibly can be. And so
you're like
I'm
the
exploring
least LDS looking guy I would think on the street,
right?
But yet you're draped with homages to our culture and symbolism.
Tanner, would you ever make that your brand? Like Utah? Like decide what is Utah's
If I knew how to do that,
Trend.
if I figured that out, like I explored enough. to the
That
point where I
ring
felt like
seems
that was
pretty
comfortable,
figured
I would
out.
totally do that. Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, dude, if you sold those rings,
I'd buy one. If
like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll tell you, it's a local guy who makes them. His name's Scott James. Look him up. It's Scott James Jewelry on Instagram.
Pass them over.
Yeah, and he's up
But
in
you
Heber.
see my point.
Yeah.
Heber?
Uh huh.
I was
And
born
you
and
can have
raised
good
there.
There you go. Yeah, it's
Scott
awesome.
James.
Yeah.
Or
Scott
the margins wouldn't
James
be
in
terrible,
Hebrew.
right? I mean,
Say it again?
The margins wouldn't be terrible for you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that a custom ring though?
It is.
Like,
I mean,
but that's the
and
thing though. Is
this
like
thing,
now I
it's-
gotta steal your
it's
idea.
200
or
no,
come
do
up with
it.
my own
Do
idea.
it. Make
I
it
don't
part of
wanna-
like our culture. Please
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
I want
It's
that ring,
250
bro.
bucks. You're supporting a local guy to do it. So
Super
please.
sick.
Yeah.
That's way cool.
Scott, wasn't it?
Scott James jewelry. Yeah. And that's
jewelry. Okay,
like
so
this
if I
is the
Google
kind of
that,
stuff
it'll
that
come
we
up,
should
right?
be doing from our own cultural perspective. This is the kind of relationship that men should have with appearance.
Yeah.
Is it's what are the things that can tie me to my culture? What are the things that can express my identity? What are the things that can reaffirm and grow my identity? It's not just what does my wife think I look handsome in, or what does mom think I look cute in?
Yeah.
I have a guy that I gotta speak up for that isn't here right now, but I actually just had a conversation with a dear friend at church, and he's actually from Canada. He's got some like ties to Colombia too and stuff. He's a pretty cool guy in my opinion, but he's a programmer. He's and he's fits the role model of a pro. He dresses nice. He actually
software engineers.
yeah, no,
I
he's
know.
actually he's like
He's a
total.
programmer.
Well, that's the whole point of.
There's
what I'm
like
bringing up.
3 of them here. Like,
He's a programmer. It's like here for me. I'm like,
Insecure about his masculinity.
Right.
Because he's like, that's all I am is just this computer guy, right? And he's talking about how he was trying to talk about how he's also a convert to the church, and so he's trying to talk about how he's confused with Christian masculinity and how he's trying to see Jesus as this masculine person, but traditionally people put Jesus down as very feminine, very pushover, very and a lot of popular culture in America really disparages Jesus' masculinity, whereas Jesus is this very masculine dude.
Right.
And so we were talking about how to find masculinity in the scriptures with Jesus, and how to find being a very good Christian while being still going out and kicking the shit out of somebody. If you like UFC, like loving UFC.
and this video just went from 4 kids to not for kids. I'm just kidding. It's like
I'm sorry that
I'm just
didn't mean to let that
kidding.
slip, but like watching a UFC thing, but then also being like I'm also forgiving and loving.
That's why I love Aslan.
Aslan.
Aslan is the best example of that godly masculinity. C.S. Lewis did such a good job in portraying him in a way that he's even the way is he safe? Of course he's not safe, but he's good. And that's what Christ is, and I think that's what we need to be. And I think one of the problems that your buddy has and subscribes to it, and this we've dealt with as an American culture forever, is we were sold this false binary. Is you can be intelligent and physically weak, or you can be physically capable and an idiot, but you can't be both. And the Greeks got it. They knew that there was this sin, and you think about it doctrinally. Like, we're one of the only faiths that understands that our body is not something that is to be rejected or that is going to be abandoned when we die. Like, we know that the body is one of the crucial aspects of exaltation. And so to think that you can reach your full potential of masculinity without embracing the full physical masculine potential that your body has is one of the most, I mean this both pejoratively and literally, one of the most spiritually retarded takes that you can have. Right? Like, we have to be physically competent in order to reach our spiritual potential and in order to reach our mental potential. He needs to embrace that.
If your dad gives you a car, vacuum it out.
Yes.
So alongside building a culture, building a Utah brand, maybe all of us are involved in this actively there. We're building that Utah kind of image, if you will. We see a lot of, I suppose, vanity in Utah, right? Like we go to church in Draper,
right?
Right? The classic stereotype, right. And it's keeping up with the Joneses. It's like, how do we build up our image, build up our personal brand, our persona, without falling prey to the vanity?
So vanity has a lot more to do with why you do what you do instead of what you do.
Sure.
I think about, one of the best ways that I can tell you to dress when it comes to what to wear to church is to wear the absolute best you can for the Lord without becoming distracting to everybody else that's there.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of really fun suits, especially getting to do like Florence and stuff like that. I've got a lot of really fun suits. I just don't wear them to church. Yeah, right.
I'm jealous.
But I just don't wear them to church because it's not a place for me to peacock. I give myself permission on Easter to wear my loud ones then because it's part of the celebration. It's part of that aspect of it.
Cool.
But other than that, my suits still look better than anybody else in the wards but it's because they fit well and they're made of high quality material, and it's more because that's what I want to offer the Lord when I'm coming in on Sunday. And so vanity has more, and I think that that's even like the scriptural component of costly apparel is if it's done as a way to put others down or to draw unnecessary attention to yourself or to aggrandize yourself at the expense of humbling yourself before the Lord, that's where the attitude of vanity or where the attitude of costly apparel is. If it becomes a way of being able to acknowledge that you're a God in embryo, that God has the best style sense of anybody because he's the best at anything else, and it's one of the ways that you can develop a healthy, godly relationship with aesthetics, then you're under a moral obligation to do that as part of your growth and development too. Yeah.
So I guess a segue to that would be, at the vanity aside, I suppose, I come from parents that worry about kind of alienating themselves from, their peers, right? Like my parents are long overdue to buy a car, like a nice car. They can afford it, they want to do it, but they worry that the second they do it, they're going to alienate all those people that they've surrounded themselves with, because they're putting themselves, above people. Like, how do you reconcile?
That's vanity.
Yeah.
That's vanity. It's just the inversion of it,
but
it's still still doing something solely for the sake of what your reputation is, and that's vanity. And I think that's one of the hardest things that most of us have to deal with, especially here, is breaking with those old attitudes. And again, go walk the temple grounds and look at the beauty that the church puts into it. Look at what God has created. Beauty is objectively good. It's not just subjectively good. It's not just kind of good because it leads to other things. Beauty is good in and of itself. If you guys want to learn more about that, watch some videos by Sir Roger Scruton. He did a lecture at BYU that was awesome. I think it was called The Good, the True, and the Beautiful. And he talks about just the inherent value of beauty. And I do believe that God wants us to be a beautiful people. There's a reason why when people are righteous, that we're rewarded with material abundance, and I mean like in the big cultural aspect of it, but also with beauty, because that becomes an outcropping of that. And so Satan wants to convince us that all pursuit of beauty is vanity, because it deprives us of so many of the godly things that come with a healthy relationship with beauty.
Wow.
Dang.
Has there ever been a client that you didn't like? You won't take somebody if they're a certain if they're like you said, hey, work on your physical side first. If someone's 300 pounds, I assume you still work with them. Is there any deal breakers where you won't work with someone?
301's the cutoff right there. Yeah,
125 is also the cutoff.
That's my range right there. Yeah.
Thought this guy wasn't gonna make it. It turns out it's just water weight.
Software developers. Sorry.
Sorry, I can't help you.
I can't.
No, but it is. Let's see. How do I put this the right way? Because it will get me into trouble. There is a certain mindset that some more analytically minded men have.
Nice.
That I found that when I work with them, they're constantly looking just for, is this good or is this bad? Is this right or is this wrong? They're just looking for instruction, and they're looking for a plug and play system as opposed to looking for a method of expression. And so if I can find that out as we're doing an exploration call, and I can tell that that's what we're looking for, I have a couple stylist friends that I'll recommend them to, because that's what they're really looking for, someone to just give them, here, wear this, and that's good, and then they can just mentally check that off their list.
Yeah.
I'll send them to those guys, but
Sure, you're still helping them.
Oh, absolutely.
You're saying, no,
absolutely.
My store doesn't have it.
But I can't
does.
help you the way that you're looking to be helped, and it's going to drive me crazy trying to work with you.
Okay.
Yeah, because
You're getting them where they want to go, at least.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's usually what I'll do. Is I would say probably, I don't know, 10% of my sales calls I have to say I'm not your guy. Sometimes it's even I would love to work with you, but you don't want to learn how to do this. You just want to outsource it. And again, that's not wrong. That just means that I'm not your guy, because you're going to waste a lot of money and a lot of time trying to go through this whole learning process with me, if really what you need is somebody to spend 2 hours with you and tell you to buy this sport coat and tell you you're stylish. And so I will send guys to that, right? And again, I say that with disdain, but it's just because there's so much more on the other side, as you guys have learned. When you learn to think about this the right way, it just opens up your whole world. But if that's what guys are looking for, then I'll just send them to a stylist instead. Yeah.
Crazy.
Is there anywhere you look specific or recommend looking for inspiration? Like, for instance, looking at store trends versus movie trends versus Instagram versus like
all of it.
It's kind
movies.
of
Movies are a really good example of costume design on movies are so good. Like, if you want to see one of my favorite styles, I don't even think I've seen the movie, but I've seen the photos pop up all the time. I'm totally Jeremy Irons when he plays Alfred in the DC Batman franchise, because he's got this very like rugged, refined, and it's all this texture and all this like classic workwear and everything, and it just totally changes the nature of what the character is.
Right.
Stuff like that. You go watch. Have any of you guys ever seen Justified with Timothy Olyphant? It's one of the best series I've ever seen. It's like probably 20 years old on FX, and it's a guy he's a U.S. Marshal in Harlan County, Kentucky, but he dresses like a cowboy from Texas, and he stands out in a way, and then like his nemesis, Boyd Crowder, has this really cool rugged style. So film is a really good way to do it. I have found that some of my best purchases have come from the Instagram algorithm, where you just follow the right guys, then the brands that kind of appeal to you, like they start advertising. It's like, okay, cool, that actually looks good. I'm gonna buy that stuff that way. Yeah. And so a lot of times you can use the algorithm to your advantage. So really like all of it. Yeah.
Do you buy online primarily or in person? Because I hate buying clothes online.
Why do you hate buying clothes online?
The fit.
Okay.
Yeah, I worry about that at least.
Same.
What's the struggle? What's the struggle with fit? Just that you haven't found something that does fit?
If it's too big, too small.
Okay.
That's what I worry about.
Two things to think of with that. The
Like
first
shoes,
thing,
for example. And,
yes. Okay. So the first thing to
pants.
think about with that is when it comes to online shopping, you can think about your effort as this like logarithmic scale, where it's really, really hard and a ton of effort at first. And then once you find the brands that work, it's really easy. Because like I've bought the same Henleys and the same jeans from the same brands for the last 6 years. And when I get a hole in a Henley or I blow out a pair of jeans, I just immediately order the same wash, the same size. It's really easy that way. The other thing is that it actually gets easier from a fit perspective, because if you think about something like a Nordstrom, okay? They have a brick and mortar store that has to appeal to an entire geographic demographic all around them. And it's all sorts of body types that are all over the place with that. But they have to be able to sell to the men in that area in order to be profitable. An online brand gets to do it the other way. They're not geographically tightened in what their target market is. They're demographically targeted by, so like shorter guys, Peter Manning or Ashton Airy, really big, well-built guys, stuff like Barbell Apparel. Like you have brands that are catered entirely to fits that may be difficult, and when you find those brands, then you know that almost everything is going to fit you really well. And so you can actually find better fits by doing online shopping when you find the right brands than you do by doing it in person. Yeah.
With some experimentation.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you got to be willing to put in that initial upfront effort, but then it tapers out and it becomes really, really easy.
Is there any like brand or material of clothing or anything that you're just like, never buy this?
Not never, but the one that gets abused the most is too many guys will wear synthetic material in their regular casual clothes. Like they will do like the quick dry polos, not on the golf course, but like when they're doing, that's what you have on right now, isn't it? I'm calling you out. No, that looks like it's more cotton. That looks like it's more cotton. Okay.
Hey, they're comfortable, so.
Well, that's the thing.
exactly.
Like,
I like that.
But it is comfortable, but it gets, so the thing that sucks about synthetic is you get both sheen, which you really should only be seeing on athletic stuff. Most of your regular day-to-day stuff should have more of a matte finish to it. And then also it has this cling, because yes, it stretches a ton, but when it isn't stretched, then it really clings in. And so it holds wrinkles too much, and that's also where you're seeing like every little bit of belly, or like your nipples if it's a little bit cold, or like it holds on too much around your belt or anything. And so it's not very flattering, even though it's comfortable. And again, you can find stuff like bamboo or merino wool that's going to have almost as much give, and it's going to be just as comfortable, but it's not going to have that same cling or that same sheen to it. And so by all means, like, wear it in the gym, wear it on the golf course, wear it in the appropriate environments, but don't wear it as like a regular everyday polo or a regular everyday pair of shorts or something.
I'm actually super lazy with that. No, you're right. Like I have 3 of these with different colors hanging in my closet, and that's my go-to. I'll just like put on a collared shirt, and it actually makes me look older. It makes me look like a 50-year-old because I'm just like, I'm the dude who's always like wearing a collared shirt, and he's got cargo pants on. You know, like because I'll remember, you know what I mean? I'll just wear them with like, because then I'll go buy pants from 511 Tactical and pair them with it, and then I just look like some dude who like left the military yesterday. You know?
Going all tactical.
Yeah, and they're just like, man, like you look like your dad, you know, and so and I'm really lazy with that, and honestly, I really do care, and I actually really do try to fit in with clothing, and I do try to get noticed, and that I love what you said about that balance, and I'm looking for that, and I am always like lately, like the last 4 years, I've just been like drifting towards the lazy side, you know, just because I'm like holding on. I've had this shirt for 5 years. You know,
so is that
I love it. I love the color.
Too much? Is that like part of your identity that you start to see
that
as part of who you are?
I'm willing to let all that go.
Okay.
I'm willing to let it go, but it's just I just don't know what to let go.
He's like, reshape me, Tanner.
Yeah. I don't see. I'm used to hailing a cab with my hand, and everybody's got phones, and I'm like, shoot, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm standing here waiting for a cab to come, and I'm like, why is everybody looking at their phone? Yeah, I'm trying to find where's the Uber for clothing, you know, because I can't hail it anymore.
Absolutely. So. I'll give you another thing that reminds me of. That's a pretty common mistake that a lot of guys make is a lot of guys tend to think of a polo shirt as a way to dress up a more casual outfit. And that's backwards. A polo shirt is a good way to dress down something that's a little bit more formal. So like you wear a long sleeve polo with a more casual suit and that looks really good. Or you throw it on with a pair of trousers and it looks more casual than it does if you're wearing a button-up shirt. But most of the time a polo with a pair of jeans or with a pair of shorts or with a pair of 511 cargo pants doesn't work. Yeah, and so polo, think of it more as a casualizer, whatever word we want to use to make that a verb.
Casualification.
It makes things more casual as opposed to formalizing things more. Yeah.
That's a good one.
What are your top favorite, like 3 to 5 brands?
Okay.
Some research.
Shoot. I like that.
And here's the thing: is they're my favorite brands, but they might not work for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Buck Mason is probably the one that I buy from the most.
Cool.
I still absolutely love all my stuff from Beckett and Robb. I still have yet to buy suiting from anybody else. Those guys are fantastic. Let's see. My favorite gym stuff is a company called Oliver's Apparel. That's one of the few companies, I told you guys I don't like to do affiliate stuff, but I do stuff with Oliver's because they're a brand that I can really get behind and I don't feel like I'm pouring myself out with them. So if you decide you want to do some stuff with them, let me know and I'll get you a discount on it. Let's see who else. Buck Mason, Beckett and Robb, Oliver's Apparel. Taylor Stitch is really good. It's Taylor. Yeah, it's probably the best start for you. Yeah.
So cool.
Question. So, how do you help people break out of the mindset that buying clothes is more of like just spending it for luxury or for fun, or it's like going on a vacation or something like that? Because I grew up with the mentality that it's like hand me down. Like you just rewear. We don't buy new clothes very often at all. You buy the new shoes when there's holes in the bottom. Like, but I understand that like dressing up is really important, and it's important for me. But probably half my clothes I've had for years.
Yeah.
But then the other half, like it's like I finally stretched out and bought one item.
Right.
But then I'm like, I feel like I need that big wardrobe because you talked about that and like different styles. But how do you break out of that and like just take the leap and expand?
Yeah, really good question. So when I'm working with my clients one-on-one, we don't do any shopping until we're like 7 or 8 weeks into the process. You have to work with me for quite a while. Yeah.
Wow.
And one of the reasons why is because one, we have to break down a bunch of what their mental and emotional barriers are. And two, I just did a thread about this on Twitter today. I've found that in a lot of cases, I know my clients better than anybody in their lives, sometimes even more than their wives do. Because when I end up talking to them about what we talk about is like, what drives you? What motivates you? What are you afraid of? What's your purpose? What would you like your purpose to be? One of the first things I ask them, I have them fill out a kind of like a goals and objectives worksheet is like, how would you like your obituary to read? Because I want you to know who you are. And most men, nobody ever asks them that. they just want to know what we do for work, and they want to know what value we can offer them. I was talking to a client who's one of my best friends, and we had a call today, and I was asking him kind of like how the process has been, and he said, one, it's way more fun than I thought it would be, and two, it just feels really good to talk to somebody who's genuinely interested in talking to me about me, you know? And I found that as I go through that whole process with them, very rarely do we get to the point where it comes time to shopping that we have barriers like that we have to break down, because they have a whole different emotional relationship with what clothing is and what it means to them.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm blown away. This is like.
Yeah, right? This is not what you would have expected when talking about clothes, right? Like, it's so cool that it's so much deeper than that.
Well, I really want to thank you for sharing your story and like sharing so much. And I know this is big service, because this is time that's valuable to you. You could be spending with your family, or you could be spending on your business, or just whatever you're doing. I don't know what kind of situation you guys got worked out here, but I really thank you. Like, this is huge for me. I got a text from my friend, told me to come here. I had no idea what it was.
Awesome.
I watched your TED Talk and was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. I'm like, but I thought you were a Viking who drank and gambled, you know? You know what I mean? I come here and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's in the same faith as me. And you're doing what I should have been doing in 2012 when I was actually drinking and gambling, living in my dad's house. Just coming,
He's like, I thought I'd connect with him.
When I was in shit,
Whole different level of connection than what I
I didn't
expected.
realize how much I was going to get out of this.
That's awesome.
It has absolutely nothing to do with even clothing.
And that is the biggest secret of all of this is, yes, when you work with me, you read my book, you talk to me, whatever, you end up having better clothing. But really what I hope that you guys get, what I always want my clients to get, is one, a more mature relationship with beauty and its inherent value, and two, a better way to understand yourself and express yourself. And just how much, like, it improves your relationship with the Lord, it improves your relationship with your spouse or on dating, it improves your relationship with your kids. Like, the better we can know ourselves, then the better off we are. And it's amazing that clothing is such a good vehicle for that when you approach it this way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for letting me come hang out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The Overton window.
Yes. And so, like, you go back 300 years ago and, like, what does godly colonialism look like? Or, like, what's the moral debate around slavery? Like, that was within the Overton window. Not
Right.
anywhere close to what our Overton window is right now. And now it's like, how do we deal with transgender sports? And that didn't exist 300 years ago, right?
Okay.
And so the window is always shifting. There's an aesthetic Overton window. Maybe I'll get arrogant enough and I'll call it Guzy's window, because Overton was the guy who invented that one. But basically, right? But you have this same thing of this range of, like, what is acceptable clothing to wear within a given demographic or a given industry. And again, software developers have a fairly narrow in some ways and broad in other ways aesthetic Overton window, where if you show up at your job wearing a 3-piece suit, you're an idiot, right? Like, we all have to dress poorly in the same way, otherwise you're not one of us. And so being able to teach software developers how to get, like, on the edges of that Overton window, so you're still within it, but you're starting to push it and expand it. And what that does for you, because a lot of guys, and I'm not accusing you of this, it's just my experience with a lot of software developers, is again, you have this kind of like one-dimensional view of who you are, and that this is who I am, and this is the value that I offer to the world. And so I struggle with dating, or I struggle with wanting to play sports, or I struggle with this or that, because all I can do is fit within this very tight, restrictive tribe of software developers and everything that's around that. And as we help you push that aesthetic Overton window, it also starts to push your mental and your emotional Overton window, and you become bigger, and your identity becomes more, and you start to become more multidimensional. Yeah, so that's why software guys are some of my favorite to work with.
And the blue collar guys.
Well, they're
Same
also
thing.
starting from a really low point generally too, so that kind of helps.
You're already way better than most of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with like Zelda t-shirts, right?
Tanner, tell them about your book so we can have this in here.
Yes, okay, so the book is called The Appearance of Power. You can find it on Amazon, or if you are an Audible listener, there's an audio version of it too. It's a quick read, and basically it's all the things that we went through today, but on a deeper level. And then also there's a system that I teach in there. It's the same system I teach my clients as far as like how to actually take this out of the realm of theory and start putting it into application. Yeah.
And if people want to find you or want to be your client?
Yep. Okay. So I'm most active on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are all at Tanner Guzy. Don't email me because I'm really bad at answering emails, but I'm really good about responding to DMs. So all my DMs are open on all those.
How do you spell Guzy?
Guzy, just one Z. And the main site is masculine-style.com. That's where you can learn more about coaching. If you guys are interested, you can just schedule like a 20-minute call with me and we'll talk more about what your needs are. And if I think I can help you, if I think I need you to send you to somebody else, and we can go through it from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.